Small Business Committee, Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne. Beth, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. Listen,
Great to see you too.
I want you to talk about what Kamala Harris is discussing here. She sees government as the solution to the problems that we face, as opposed to the government has been the problem that brought us high inflation and high interest rates.
Well, thank you for having me on. You're absolutely right. The problem has been Kamala Harris and the Biden administration's policies that have added trillions of dollars to our debt. And by putting all of those dollars out there, they've increased inflation. You look at costs have gone up 20%. Mortgage rates are up 86%. We think about the cost of gas, the cost of food. You look at right now what people are spending and how much they are in debt. Under the Trump administration, people had the highest amount of personal savings in recorded history. Under the Biden-Harris administration, they've got the most amount of personal debt in recorded history. This is what her policies have had. And now she's thrown out that she wants to spend an additional $7 trillion. We've seen exactly what this spending has caused to the American people. We've seen the heartache that it's caused. And look, we just had a job fair in North Texas. We had nearly 25,000 people come out. And it was heartbreaking because so many of those people that were coming out were seniors trying to now get new jobs after they had already retired because they can't afford that Biden-Harris economic disaster.
Right, and fiscal policy helps them, not this political half-a-point rate cut from the Federal Reserve. And by the way, before we move on, the market reaction said, hey, inflation that is crushing working people is not licked because longer-term interest rates, that on the 10-year Treasury, went up. So they got egg on their face. But Congressman, you just left the House floor where the debate of the day is about government funding and the SAVE Act. Fill us in.
Look, we're going to vote on a continuing resolution. It's a clean continuing resolution. I hate governing by continuing resolutions. We should be able to pass appropriation bills. We should be able to pass a balanced budget. But instead, we're kind of at the moment's notice because we're going to have a government shutdown. If we don't pass something by October 1st, we should not have been in this position. So what we're trying to do is pass a clean CR with a SAVE Act attached. Now, I voted for the SAVE Act. I am all for not having people who are illegally here and who should not be legally voting vote. Okay, I have already passed that. But I cannot possibly pass a clean CR looking at the amount of money that we've already thrown into a $36 trillion debt, and that has caused the crushing inflation that we've seen on working families especially. And that's what we're getting ready to go vote on in just a few short minutes.
You know, we haven't passed appropriations bills for decades. Yeah. We have to reform the way the Congress works. Maybe it's not every year, maybe it's every 2 years. We go through a budget process and appropriations process. But we have to recognize that process doesn't work. And again, I was you at one point, Beth. I would complain about the same process. You can't get it done. There's almost not enough time in the year. But now you're forced to say, well, if you don't vote for this, Democrats aren't going to vote for it either, right? So at one point, Speaker Johnson is going to have to come back and go, I'm going to look at working with Democrats to pass a CR, which will make it less conservative. And that's how these deals get done. And again, that's, I think, outrageous when Republicans control the House.
Well, we had the Limit, Save, Grow Act that we did, a little over a year ago, and that actually had cuts to it was the highest cuts to discretionary spending that we've had in our history. If we had had some kind of cuts like that and the SAVE Act attached to it, I would have supported it. But we cannot continue the COVID era spending. We should go into pre-COVID era spending, which will, by the way, a lot of people would say that was already spending too much. But we look at the debt, we have got to take it. We just cannot continue kicking that can down the road.
Well, that's one of the reasons that the Fed has to cut rates, because the nation is so indebted because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that they can't afford to let rates stay at these levels because, again, the interest on the national debt is $1 trillion and climbing. But before you go, Joe Biden just blasted all Republicans. Congresswoman, listen to this.
This is the single most consequential election, maybe the lifetime of anyone standing here, because it matters. The other team doesn't see the world like we see it. They don't have the same attitude we have. They are the most closed-minded people that I've ever dealt with.
Your reaction to that, Congresswoman?
Well, he's right. We are a day and night difference. We actually don't believe that government is the answer to everything. We believe government is a lot of the problem. To allow people to have, the ability to be able to save, the ability to be able to spend and decide what they want to spend on, the ability to be able to have generational wealth, to focus on economic growth, to give people opportunities. That's what, as Republicans, that we're trying to do. And what we see Democrats, and you just, the quote that you had from Harris earlier is they just want to continue spending money, and they have got no idea how they're going to pay it back.
They're not going to pay it back. They want to break it. They're not dumb. They're going to break this thing. Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, always wonderful to see you. Thanks for being with us. Good luck on the House floor.